Hello everyone, 2019 is almost a wrap. Cloud gaming is going to be a huge topic next year, but it's kind of already a big topic this year. Google is following in the footsteps of many others, but making a huge splash, at least they want to, with Stadia. Michael and I have been toying around with it for 4 days,
got our Founders Editions here.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, but one thing we have to caveat this with is that these really aren't our final impressions. You know, the Founders Edition, what the games are going to be available, how all the tech is going to work, that stuff is going to change the day after this video goes live. So these are our initial impressions based on pre-release state of things, and we'll be back with more to say about things once they launch properly.
Yeah, Stadia is not in its final form, even at launch, because there's still a lot of features that are going to be implemented, a lot more games that are going to be launched gradually. But yeah, so yeah, like you said, this is a pre-release impressions of Google Stadia.
Yep, and we've got a bunch of lists regarding the stuff that's going to come later on in this video, so hang tight. But first, let's look at some gameplay.
Let's mix it up.
All right, so what you just saw is a sample of the Stadia gameplay that we've been enjoying or trying to enjoy for the past few days. And I say that because Stadia is pretty complicated.
It is.
Yeah, it's advanced, but it's not so easy.
Yeah, there's a lot of small things that you need to work around to really get to the meat of what Stadia is. I think that we're going to get into the different ways that you can enter the Stadia app, because there's you can use your Pixel phones for now.
Yep.
Chromecast Ultra, and you can do it through a Chrome browser. But yeah, it's kind of complicated. Through a Chrome browser, you can only do up to 1080p, and it's not the best quality, but
right.
it does work. And I think that's the most intuitive way to play Stadia games. You just go to the website, log into your account, and boom, you're ready to launch a game in your Chrome browser. And I think that's kind of my favorite way to engage with it. But
yeah. What's your overall opinion thus far? Oh. What's your like back of the box quote for this, good or bad?
Oh boy,
that's it. That says it all.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. And it's different aspects of it, because going into this, my main concern was input lag. And I think that when I'm playing Destiny, I think that I do feel it playing keyboard and mouse controls, especially with a first-person shooter, and I do feel that with Destiny 2. Playing Mortal Kombat 11 is actually kind of impressive. It is a slower fighting game. There are options to tinker with input windows, so it's a fighting game that works really well for this, even if there is a smidge of input lag. So I'm a bit impressed on that front. That being said, I am playing mainly through a wired connection, so it's best conditions possible for this thing. I think what surprised me from the flip side is how much I noticed image compression.
Yeah.
Going into this, like I said, my main concern input lag, but now I'm looking at this thing and I'm playing in, like I said, in the best conditions possible, and I'm noticing a lot of image compression. And I have a decent monitor, good connection, and I have this thing set to play in 1080p, and I am noticing those things. So you're not going to get the best looking image out there.
Right, and I think for me the big question is, because we are people who play games normally on consoles and PC. You are as well, for the most part. We're assuming, we are people that Google is trying to, court as an option for gaming. And everything I've played so far, I just had this nagging feeling like, I think I'd rather play it somewhere else. Now, as you were mentioning, there are some obvious, advantages to using Stadia. Totally agree. Opening up games in a browser tab is one of those things that's just that's so cool. But yeah, there are issues, right? I mean, even though I don't expect it to be absolutely perfect, I'd be lying to myself if I said, yeah, this is what I look for in a modern gaming experience. There are sacrifices, right, basically. And there are a lot of complications as well, which we'll get into. But not everything is as easy as you might think, given the state of modern technology, even given the state of Google's own ecosystem of hardware. So for example, one of the most frustrating things for me as someone who has a Google Home router, and the Chromecast Ultra uses the same home app on your cell phone as the router that I have does. I was unable to make the two communicate with each other.
Yes.
Now that's given the fact that I had set up my Chromecast Ultra here in the office, and then I brought it home to try to do that. Now I tried to reset profiles, by the time I spent about a half hour doing it, I said, I need to get back to testing this thing and not fiddling around, because clearly if it's not that simple using Google's own hardware against itself within the same piece of software, there's something going wrong here.
Yeah, that's more of the Chromecast side and the Google Home app, but when you think
that's part of it, though.
Exactly, that's the Founders Edition. You get the controller and you get Chromecast Ultra.
Right.
So that's part of the package. Like, this is the way you are going to play Stadia, and also Chromecast Ultra right now is the only way you can play Stadia in 4K.
Yes.
And get the best image quality. So that is a big push for the package. And when it is wildly complicated to get that all set up, not even mentioning the complications when you try and do a wired setup with Chromecast Ultra, it's too many hoops to jump through for something that is pitched as a simple way to just simply boot up and get into a game real fast.
Yeah, I've never seen a power brick have an Ethernet port on it before.
Yeah, that's
now,
another thing.
This is just a practical physical consideration and not exactly the complications Michael was talking about when connecting over Ethernet. But for me, it was a very real issue because I'm at home trying to work within my setup. Normally I plug in the end of an Ethernet cable into where the opposite end of a power brick goes, right? Into the back of the console or whatever. But in this case, I had to rewire all my stuff, get the Ethernet to where I would plug in power. That was kind of a headache, only to have it not work in the end.
So for now, I think that people should know that Chromecast Ultra has this weird issue where if you're trying to set it up, you have to do it through a Wi-Fi network. Through your phone first, and it has to be on the same network. And if you have the Ethernet cable plugged in at the same time, it will not give you the wireless signal. You won't be able to connect through a Wi-Fi network.
Right.
So there's a weird in between where you need to, if you want to do a wired connection through Chromecast Ultra, it's not clear when you should be putting in the wired connection for that optimal experience, because especially if you're going to be doing 4K with Chromecast Ultra, you're definitely going to want to rely on a wired connection.
Right, and we need to talk about 4K, but first I want to say that we do understand that not every user is going to be moving their Chromecast Ultra between different networks and between different devices, but these are just the things we experience, so it's definitely worth mentioning in case you ever find yourself in a situation where you might want to do that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, regarding 4K gameplay, one of the things that Google makes pretty clear when you're in the settings menu to dial in the various performance levels you want to put Stadia in, 4K is going to take 20 gigabytes an hour of data. That is a lot, and I don't think that that's terribly surprising, but it is expensive. I come close to my data cap, or I go over my data cap basically every single month. I'm capped at a terabyte through Xfinity. I've had to shell out $50 to basically unlock that in order just to test this thing, let alone use it as an actual mode of playing games on a regular basis.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of how much data that is, I did the math out there. Let's say you play on average about 3 hours of games a day, and over the course of a month, that's 3 times 30, because about 30 days in a month, so that's 90 hours of gameplay, and that's just a base estimate.
Right.
And multiply that by 20, you're coming close to 2 terabytes worth of data streaming 4K gameplay alone. That's not counting anything else that you do. So that's a lot. That's more than, a lot of data caps here, at least in the Bay Area, is 1 terabyte, I believe. So, I mean, you're going to be going over that real fast.
So you do have the option of knocking things down to 720p. Why would you want to do that? I think only for the sake of using the more convenient features of Stadia, which is, streaming to your phone, which you can only do over Wi-Fi. You can't do over cellular right now.
Yep.
And that takes up 4.5 gigabytes an hour, which is more reasonable, for sure. But again, you're not really getting an experience that is, gaming the way that you normally do, right? You're playing last-gen resolutions at that point. And we're on the cusp of next-gen consoles coming out, of 4K being the standard. Google said in the past, they expect ISPs are just going to do the right thing and figure this out. I hate to tell you, but ISPs, like any other business, loves money.
Yeah.
And if they know that people like us are going to want to shell out money for more data, they're probably going to take it. And in the Bay Area, at least where I live, I don't have any other option but to be slower than what I currently have through Comcast, which is not an option.
Yeah.
So, all that said, it isn't all doom and gloom. I do want to talk about the controller really quick. This controller kicks ass. It's really, really good, at least I think. It's reminiscent of the Switch Pro controller in terms of the size and shape. But it has the layout of a DualShock with the 2 sticks down here and such. Beyond that, in terms of just an input device that in terms of ergonomics and inputs, this thing just kind of worked the way I expected to and didn't really surprise me, and that was really good.
Yeah, I like the control a lot. The sticks feel smooth. The D-pad, I mean, it may look funny, but like it has a nice crunch to it. The phase buttons, the triggers are really real nice and smooth as well. So overall, it's a gaming control that you would, you kind of expect it to be of this quality.
Yeah, so that's great to hear. One thing that is a little disappointing though, the Founder Edition controller is something that you've paid a premium for, that you're being sold as like, this is a collector's item that is exclusive to this tier, whatever. Well, Google also sent a clip. Now, this is used to basically attach your cell phone to the controller so you can play the mobile version of the game with full controls, which can be really good. Like playing Tomb Raider, for example, a game like that has some looseness to its control scheme and the demands it puts on you as a player. The little bit of latency that I would get here and there wasn't really a problem. What is a problem, I think, is that this clip that's so tight has scuffed the heck out of this controller.
Yep.
Now, I don't have any personal attachment to this as a collectible, but I could easily imagine someone being disappointed to see that can happen. Now, this isn't the only clip that's going to be on the market. Obviously, people are going to sell more of these. Maybe there's ones out there that are going to be designed with better cushioning involved. I don't know. All I know is this is the one Google sent as the representative of the scenario that you might use this in. And it's disappointing to see that they didn't take the condition of the product that they're actually selling and making into consideration. Okay, well, let's talk about the games real quick. Right now, we've got Mortal Kombat up on the screen, and you said that you've been playing a little bit of this. I have as well. And a fighting game is one of those things that is definitely going to make you question, the usability of something like Stadia, right? Working in the cloud, latency is an issue. Fighting games, you obviously need to be very responsive. We are connected right now via Ethernet, so we've got a pretty good connection. And why don't you, one of the things I found actually, if you don't mind, is moving the cursor around the screen to see like if it ever sort of like hiccups or delays or like gets multiple inputs when you just hit it once.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, sometimes it hitches, like it's in the middle of processing your input, but that happens. Not that often, at least if you're connected reliably through the internet, but yeah.
And the reliable connection, that also has to do with the bandwidth you're getting. Google recommends at least 10 megabits per second down. I assume in this environment we have way more than that. At home I have about, I think 500 megabits down. Like playing wirelessly, was really responsive at home. I remember we were trying to do it on the wireless network at the office, which for some reason is not great. And we were getting a ton of input issues, a ton of compression artifacts. But the moment I went home and started playing on mobile, specifically over Wi-Fi, is really good. And I thought especially again, I said Tomb Raider, that worked out really well. But of course, you're not always going to have a perfect connection. And in scenarios where I was dealing with something, just riding the line between Google's recommended minimum, I was not happy with the experience. So you really need to have a fast connection for Stadia, to work well. And that might not be surprising, but it's worth noting that their minimum is just sort of like a technical minimum for it to work, not to be a great experience. You're playing Mortal Kombat. We've also played, I think between us, a bunch of Destiny 2 here and there. I've loaded up an old character, I've used the new one, and it's been interesting. I think we've seen different performance for Destiny on different platforms, right? Like playing on mobile, it to me looked just a lot like the console version, but scaled down, and that's great, I guess. Like it worked fine. There's definitely some delay in terms of moving the reticle and inputs registering that made me have to reconfigure my approach to playing. So not ideal, but again, if we're just thinking within the framework of cloud gaming, it's all right. But when you were playing on Chromecast, we noticed something very unfortunate.
What was that?
The FOV issue.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
that begs another question about the customization with these games, because you're not getting the PC versions of it. You can't customize its graphics, graphic fidelity. But that also means a game like Destiny 2, like you mentioned, there's no FOV settings. So if you're playing in a desk situation where you're pretty close to the screen, a low FOV is really gonna mess you up.
And I feel like when you put it on the Chromecast Ultra and it was running at 4K, that the FOV was actually narrower. Yeah. The gun you were using, which is it's that Egyptian-looking one. What is it called? Pharaoh's shoot. You know the one. That gun took up what looked like half the screen when you were playing in 4K. I mean, we laughed. It was silly to look at, and not the sort of conditions you would want to play Destiny 2 in. And yeah, it's not. So here we go. I mean, that's fine when you're zoomed in, but when we're going, yeah, you can kind of get a sense of it here.
Yeah, like I said, you kind of want some of that customization with this game, especially if you're playing in different settings. Like on console, you're probably going to be playing in a couch setting where you can kind of sit far away from your TV and all that. But the nature of Stadia, where you're switching between different modes of play, you're going to want to at least have some sort of customization to how the game looks. Now, that being said, things could change. We're not sure because this is an evolving platform. But for now, these are some of the limitations that you have to think about when playing these games, on top of the other sorts of variables that you have to worry about.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up a doc here, and I'm gonna sort of run you through the things that are yet to change once we start going here. Okay. On November 19th, the selection of Stadia games, their cost, the number of players on servers, the publisher-side services of some games, the Google Assistant button, Mortal Kombat 11's modes, support for wireless PS4 and Xbox One controllers, sharing captured content, being able to voice chat, and seamless exiting of games on mobile will be finalized.
Yes.
There's a lot that we have to check out still.
Yeah.
We're not quite ready.
Yeah, which is kind of like why we're doing this sort of as a review in progress, is because, like we said in the beginning of the video, is that we're working with an early version of this. Even at launch, it's still going to be a fairly early version of Stadia. This platform is going to take time to mature.
Yeah.
And it's evident in what you're going to be working with if you have a Founders Edition, and also the list of features that are yet to come.
Yes, and so if you are someone who pre-ordered the Founders Edition or the one that came after, the Premier Edition, which I think you can still pre-order, Google is going to be shipping those out on a rolling per-order basis. So if you got in early, you might get yours tomorrow, the 19th, when this officially launches. But it might take 2 weeks to get it, according to Google. So, while you potentially wait for yours and wait for more opinions on Stadia to come for us, we're going to keep playing for now. We were shooting this last week by the time you're watching this, and continue playing when the Founders Edition and all its features go live. So stay tuned to So keep coming back to GameSpot for more coverage from myself and Michael. Thank you for watching. Good luck, Google. We hope it works out, because honestly, this would be great if it did.
Peace.